Welcome to Wine Time with Wine Guy Mike. This morning I've got a special friend and guest, Courtney Kingston from Kingston Family Vineyards in the Casablanca Valley of Chile, visiting with us this morning. And Courtney's been a past guest on my radio show and done some other fun Skype things with me. And we love her wine on Wine Time with Wine Guy Mike, and she's a special person and a special friend on this show. Courtney, welcome this morning.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here from Casablanca.
And Courtney, how much of the year do you spend down in Casablanca? Are you down there intermittently throughout the year, or how does that work for you?
So I come down about every other month, so 5-6 times a year, at the key times of the year, as you may imagine. So right now we're just wrapping up winter when we're making our plans for the next vintage. I'm always here for harvest, come back for bottling, and other key points throughout the year. So it's a pleasure. I sort of have a foot in both worlds between the U.S., where I import the wines, as well as our farm in Chile, where we're fortunate enough to make them.
And talking about times of the year, what season is it down in Chile right now?
It's beautiful early spring. In fact, I was trading California's wildfires, which is always an anxious time of year, and I'm not that far from Yosemite. So for the brightness of early spring, it's actually a great time to be a cow. Our beef cattle is out in the field grazing. The newest terneros, the baby calves, have been born, and it's just it's a special time of rebirth and hope down here, which is always that's why one of the reasons why I enjoy what I do so much is you're really tied to the land.
It's interesting in Missoula, Montana, where I reside, we are now enjoying the smoke from Yosemite.
Yes, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's actually, well, we've got plenty of our own, but we appreciate you sharing from California. It's interesting. It was 95 degrees here yesterday, and I'm not a big global warming fanatic or anything, but you can't help but look outside your window and understand, some of the things that we're doing to the earth are, increasing temperatures globally. And I know that's impacted some wine regions. Napa Valley is up about 2.5 degrees. Bordeaux and Burgundy have also been impacted. Has there been any impact down in South America at this point?
Well, I only speak from our own personal experience, but I can tell you when my dad and my grandfather were all growing up in Western Casablanca my dad was born in the early 40s, my grandfather in 1915, around that time. It was cold. In fact, when we decided to take our ranch and plant vineyards up in the hillside, my Uncle Peter to this day says, "In that frostbitten Dust Bowl, are you kidding me?" And so that is actually one small benefit of global warming, and so far for us is that actually we are able to plant where we haven't been able to plant before. Now, that said, and ripen, for instance, Syrah, which generations ago would never have been possible. That said, we're always keeping an eye on how things are changing. I mean, right now we're really pleased and excited about the potential for Pinot Noir. But Pinot's very particular for how cool it is. Thankfully, we have the cool ocean breeze where we are. We're only 10 miles from the Pacific, and that really helps us in terms of moderating influence. But only time will tell. I mean, again, the seasons, they keep you humble.
And you and I have spoken in the past, and your vineyard and ranch is located, about 12 miles from the Pacific? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, exactly. As the crow flies.
And it's the Humboldt Current that really influences the Pacific there. What is the Humboldt Current?
It's basically a movement, and this is where if an oceanographer is watching us, they're going to be like, "Oh, she really doesn't know what she's talking about." My understanding, my very much layperson's understanding, Mike, is it's essentially a current of cool water that goes up the western coast on the Pacific Ocean, up the western coast of the Pacific, and it has got a cooling influence on where we are. So if you actually took us and flipped us straight up above the equator, on top of the U.S., we would end up at the same latitude as San Diego. And I can tell you Casablanca has very little in common with San Diego. I mean, we're a lot cooler than that. So the Humboldt Current really is at the heart of what makes our location that much more possible for cool climate reds.
And for our viewers, give us a little background because it, this was a cattle ranch, and really the
Right.
vineyards are a result of your time spent at Stanford and business plan and thinking about sustainability for your family's ranch, if I'm understanding that correctly from our
Yes.
past conversations. So tell us a little bit about that, Courtney.
Sure. Well, it really all started with my great grandfather, who was actually, I mean, we have a long history of entrepreneurs, people going their own way. And my great grandfather was from Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is, you know, if you got the hand, the UP is Canada. It's not even on the hand of Michigan. And, but in 1906, he headed south to South America, looking for copper and gold. And he made the bet of a lifetime on the Valley of Casablanca, looking actually at that time for gold itself, and was dead wrong. So he essentially ended up as, you know, the land was part of the deal, and there he was and inherited the land because he was the creditor on this venture and loved the area so much he stayed. So my grandfather and my father and all my aunts and uncles, great aunts and uncles, were born and raised on this ranch. And that has basically been traditional farming. So we've about 1,000 head of dairy, about 1,000 head of beef cattle, and that's pretty much what we've been doing for 4 of our generations. When I was at Stanford was the early 90s, and we were trying to think what was next for our farm. We're only an hour from Santiago, 20 minutes to the beaches. And the exciting thing about Chile is just what incredible potential and growth there is for the area. We were trying to figure out how to preserve the agricultural history, keep our farm together for the next generation. And it was at that time I coincidentally was working for a couple wineries in Northern California. Down here in Casablanca, some of our neighbors were planting. And that's when I applied to business school and worked on the business plan to plant high-end grapes up in the far hills of our farm.
And not only did you plant grapes, but the Casablanca Valley was known really for just white wines. So you really stepped out of the box and experimented with Pinot Noir and Syrah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, again, I took a page out of my great grandfather and grandfather's books. We've always been people going at slightly different path, for better or for worse. And what we knew we wanted to do was create something special, and that was unique, and that spoke of our unique place in Western Casablanca. And we really believed in the potential of the hills. I had done a lot of study and had the good fortune to have friends making Pinot Noir and Syrah up on the coast of Sonoma, the Sonoma coast. And I started to get to know them. And actually what I ended up doing was met a very talented maker in Byron Kasugi, who at the time was just finishing up his time at Sainsbury in Caneros and starting his own little label. Byron and I bartered a week of my time helping him with his Excel spreadsheet and trying to do his business plan for his own label, Be Kasugi Wines. For a week of his time, brought him down on frequent flyer miles to walk through our vineyard and see whether he thought we could make world-class Pinot Noir and Syrah in the Casablanca Hills. And that was, gosh, 10 years ago. And we're just getting started, Mike. We're just getting started.
I know, and I'm so appreciative of being able to offer my wine customers in the market on front our new market that's a gourmet market that focuses on prepared food. So I really have spent a lot of time and devoted a lot of attention to the wine portfolio that I carry there, carrying all very food-friendly wines, wines that offer tremendous value. And I just enjoyed a bottle of the Tobiano and the Carrie Blanco Sauvignon Blanc the other night, and I was thinking about the wines this morning, and I guess if there's a couple words that really come to mind for me, focused, detailed, and they're very fluid wines. They're easy to drink. I find the Sauvignon Blanc, this most recent vintage, is very sophisticated wine. not to mean that it's only for wine aficionados, because someone who's a novice is going to have a great experience drinking this wine. And then the Pinot Noir is just it's elegant. It's got just nice powder-like tannin to it. Very well made. It's you can look at the color of that wine in the glass, and you just get that ruby center, and it stays red right out to the rim. I mean, it's beautiful, and you can tell just by looking at it that it's very well structured. So I'm just pleased to be able to share those with my wine friends and customers at the market on front. And it's a lot of fun. And there's a little story that goes behind the name of the wines that I hope you can share with us, and share some of your thoughts about your wine too.
Sure. Well, thank you for all your kind words. I mean, we're a part of a group of winemakers in Chile that are passionate about our wines, making wines on a human scale. So we make a very small amount of wine, Mike, less than 5,000 cases. And I'm so thrilled that they're with you at Market on Front. I mean, it's very exciting for us that they make it all the way from Casablanca into the hands of your customers. So each of our wines are named after a horse on our ranch, or inspired by a horse on our ranch. So the first wine we ever bottled was our Alassane Pinot Noir, which is the older sister to the Tobiano. And Alassane was my Uncle Peter's horse back in the 50s. When my dad was growing up, each child, there were 5 of them in that generation, they got a horse and they got a cow. And those animals were their responsibility. So Alassane his full name was Alassane de Paso. So, and he was named after the coat of basically his hair. And so we played with that idea. So Cariblanco is a white-faced horse. Lucero or Syrah is a horse with a white flash on its forehead. And these are working horses. I mean, we, again, as I mentioned, have a lot of cattle on our farm. So these are not Arabian Nights. These are working horses that work on our farm. So that was the inspiration. And we really wanted to also express through the naming of our wine, these wines for us are handmade. It's a personal thing. These are not mass-produced wines shipped around the world at a large scale. These are wines made with our own hands on a very personal human scale. Thank you for your compliments about the wine. So we really try to also, what we want is that our wines to speak of Western Casablanca, to speak of this unique place that, again, I feel like we're really just dialing it in. We've got 10 years behind us. Our vineyard is only 15 years old. And we're just so excited about the early results, and just can't wait to keep moving on, keep working on it.
So are you really involved in the marketing of the Kingston family vineyard wines?
Yes, that's pretty much what I do. Again, we're so small, I do everything. Believe it or not, I weigh in on whether we should be field grafting a row from Pinot Noir to Chardonnay, or what clones we should be importing from UC Davis. But then I also work on, what price, what's a fair price for our wine? What's the pack look like? We import the wines ourselves too. We're, for better, for worse, we really felt like we needed to be a part of every step of the way, because it is such a personal, family-based business for us.
Well, and I feel like that's really reflected in the wines. I mean, you can, you can smell, drink, and taste the love in these wines, and I think that's what I enjoy about them so much, and why it's so fun to share them and share the story. And I was just trying to think of a couple of other things that I wanted to find out about the wines. What foods do you really enjoy with your wines?
Well, I can tell you that I had a bottle of Cariblanco in the hospital after each of my 3 daughters were born, with some sushi, believe it or not.
Wow.
And in little styrofoam cups, my husband smuggled the Cariblanco in. So that's a favorite. I love starting off the evening with our Sauvignon Blanc. And then I enjoy with our Pinot Noir. You were talking about the Tobiano, which I know you have at Market on Front.
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite things about Pinot is it's incredibly versatile, and there's a spicy character to our Tobiano, our Pinot Noir, that I love because I feel like it adds an added twist to it. So I enjoy it with salmon, I enjoy it with chicken, I enjoy it with barbecue. I mean, it's just incredible. It's really fun how Pinot can just light up so many meals.
I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting with the Chilean wines, and the other thing that is so great about the Kingston wines is that they really do exude a sense of place, which I think is very important. And Chile really so different from Argentinian wines for me. Uh, they're a little bit richer, have a little more lushness to them for me, and I think that is a reflection of the ground they're grown in and the climate differences. And I think that's interesting because the Pinot Noir really, uh, I like it. It's focused. It has nice restraint to it. Uh, it's just a little uh, less big maybe than some of the Willamette Pinot Noirs that I enjoy also. But I really like Pinot Noir from Chile, and I think that it's interesting that they suit my palate so well from there, and and that's why we make different wines around the world for different palates and stuff. But I'm really becoming a huge fan of the Chilean Pinot Noir.
Thank you. One of the things that I think of, or what strikes me when I enjoy a glass, is in many ways it's a blending of the old and the new world. So there is that old world structure, that backbone, which I think is really important to a good wine. You were talking about that nice acidity. You need to have some. You need to have some tannins, not harsh tannins, but you need to have some structure that then you can hang on top of that the generosity of some new world fruit. And for us in particular, we've actually been having a lot of fun experimenting, picking a little bit earlier, playing with some different. We've actually got a new concrete egg, which looks like a rocket ship down here in our barrel room. Playing with different kinds of fermentation, whole cluster. What we're really looking for, though, is that blend where you have that structure that you can hang on top of that some beautiful fruit. That is not, and ultimately it's all about balance. We're not trying to go veer one way or veer too much the other way. And then at the same time, you always have Mother Nature shaking the ground underneath, keeping you humble. But thank you for your compliments because it's really what we're striving to do. Wines of balance that speak of where they're from, which for us is Western Casablanca.
Yeah, I think I was just sitting here listening to you, and I think maybe that the Pinot Noir um, from Chile is very similar to Sonoma Pinots that I enjoy a lot. I love Boleto family vineyards and winery, and Anthony Beckman's a winemaker there, and he does an amazing job. I don't know if you've had a chance to taste Anthony's wines at all, but he's quite a young winemaker, and I just love, in the few years since I've known you, the wines just have exponentially gotten better, and they were great to start with. But it's just exciting watching what's happening down at your vineyards, and I so appreciate you taking time out of your really busy schedule, Courtney, to be with us. And I hope when you're visiting Montana that I can host a wine tasting and have you there when you're in town, and bring people to meet you, because it just makes the wine that much better. You're such a great guest, and I really appreciate getting to know you and our friendship, and I look forward to the future.
Thank you, Mike. Any excuse to come back to Missoula, I would love it. So please, I'll look forward to it.
Great. Thank you for joining us on Wine Time with Wine Guy Mike, Courtney. We'll talk again soon. Cheers to you.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Bye now. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.